Hello everybody, I hope you are doing okay. Welcome to my new series where I'm gonna show you how to make an Instagram-like app. But now, don't get your hopes too much. I'm not gonna show you how to make Instagram by design, but I'm gonna show you how to make the functionality of Instagram. Like, we're gonna go create and log in with our users. We're gonna follow users, unfollow users. We're gonna post our pictures, we're gonna like the pictures, and you got all the concept. I hope you guys enjoy.
For this project, we're gonna need a single view application. So let's go to XCode and go to File, New, and Project. We select single view application and let's call it Instagram-like. And the language is gonna be set to Swift. Go next. Alright, now that we created our project, let's go and set up Firebase. I will need to copy this bundle identifier. So you just go and copy this. And let's go and open Firebase in Safari. I've already opened it here. It's firebase.google.com. And if you don't have an account, you can easily create and go to your console. Now, I already talked how Firebase works in my other videos, so I'm not gonna really explain in depth Firebase. So very simply, I'm gonna go and create a new project, and I'll call this Instagram. And region, I'll put United Kingdom. Create new project. Now that we created the project, let's go and add the Firebase to our iOS app. So by simply pressing here, you're gonna have to go through some steps, and then we can import Firebase. Now, iOS bundle ID is the one that I copied from my project, and I'm gonna give it a nickname of Instagram. And let's go and add app. Now here it downloaded the Google service -info.plist, and we need to insert it to our project. So let's go and open XCode, and I'm gonna make this a smaller one, and I'm gonna make this one smaller. Alright, so right here I'm gonna go drag this into my project, release, and we need to copy items if needed, and click finish. And right here we added it. Now be careful right here. My name says Google service -info-7. You want to delete that -7. It's just because I've downloaded it 7 times. That's why it gave this name. You want to have just Google service -info. Alright, let's continue with our steps. Now we have to go to our terminal and do a pod init. For this pod init, you need to have Cocoa Pods. If you don't have Cocoa Pods, you can just Google how to install Cocoa Pods. And after you install Cocoa Pods, you can go to terminal and go to your directory where you saved your project. And I suppose mine is in desktop, so I'm gonna go cd desktop and ls. Actually, it's not there. If I go to cd YouTube and ls, I can see it Instagram-like is right here. So I'm going cd Instagram-like, and now I'm into my project folder, and right here I say pod init. Now that I initialized pod, it went and created a pod file to me. So if I go ls right here, you can see I have this pod file. So you can just say open pod file, just like this. And right here we want to install our pods. Well, basically, here it says we need to install pod Firebase core. So let's go and say pod, single quotes, Firebase/core. But I'll also want to install some other ones, which are the authorization. So I'm gonna say pod single quote Firebase/auth and close single quotes. I'm gonna copy this thing. Let's go and add more. Pod Firebase/database. I want to include the database, and right here we want to add the storage. Now we want the authorization, so we can have users and authorized users with Firebase. We want to have the database, so we can create our users and have their full name, image, and everything else. And storage is where we're gonna store our images for our users and the images for every feed. You just save this and you close it. And now back into your terminal, you have to say pod install. And as you can see, our pods are getting installed. and it generated a new Instagram-like.xc workspace, and you need to work on that from now on. So I'm not gonna need this anymore. I can clearly close it, and let's go and open dot, and it's gonna open my Instagram-like folder, and I need to open this project right here. It opened in my other window, so this is our project that we have to work now. And here we can see we have our main storyboard, view controller, app delegate, and everything. Now that everything is installed, let's go and create our views. In our main storyboard, we're gonna create our login and sign up view. This is very simple. I'm just gonna add UI text field. Let's go out here. I'm gonna add one here like this. I'm gonna expand it. And to this one as well. And right here, let's go and give it a placeholder name of email. And this one is password. And I want to give them a bit of functionality. This one keyboard type is going to be email for the user to be easier to write their emails. I'm not going to put any corrections or capitalization, and spell checking we're going to set to no. And on password we're going to do the same ones, and we also want to secure text entry. That's going to make it a password field. Very good. And let's have a button. Button. That button is simply, I'm gonna put it right here. It's gonna say login, and we also want another button that's gonna say sign up. Now, as I said at the opening, I'm not gonna go fully into how to create Instagram by design. I'm just gonna show you how to do the functionality. And now let's go and add constraints to our views. Now I want this expanded to margins, and from the top 8. Very good. Same one for this 008, and I'm gonna put 8 from the bottom, and this one is gonna be centered horizontally, and this one is gonna be 8 pixels from the top and centered horizontally. Now everything lies perfectly into our view, and let's go and create another view where we're gonna sign up. UI view, this is the first one. Very good. Now, for signing up, what we would like to do, UI text field. All right, right here, we want to write full name. So let's go and say here, full name. We want to have the user's full name. You can even have a username or anything that you want. I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna put the full name, email, and password field. It depends on what you want to do with your users and what information you want to hold. So let's go and say email on this one, and another text field is gonna be a password. And let's expand this, and this one is gonna be a confirm password. We want to make sure that they've entered the correct password. So confirm password. Very good. Now let's go and add some properties. Correction we don't want. Capitalization we want on every word, so every word will appear with capital letter for their name. Spell checking we don't want, and keyboard type is going to be default. Same for this one. Correction no, spell checking no, and keyboard type is going to be an email. And this is correction no, spell checking no, and secure text entry, and same for this one, as they're the same field. Very good. Now we want an UI image right here, because we will ask our users to take a picture, and that's gonna be their user picture. I'm just gonna create a small one right here like this. They're gonna see how the picture looks like. And UI button, that button is gonna select the picture. So let's say select picture. Very good. And we want another button that's gonna continue to our next view controller. We'll call it next. Now let's go and add some constraints to this. This is gonna be 0 from the top and expand it from the left and right margin. And this one is gonna have 8 pixels from the top, 0 to left and right. Same for this one. I'm also gonna add the bottom one. So that means that this one needs to expand like this and add, actually I'm just gonna expand it. All right, now this one I'm gonna right click and drag, and I'm gonna say vertical spacing. Very good. It's gonna add vertical spacing of 8, as you can see. Now right, this one we want to put it 0 from the left, and we want to give it a width and a height, and I'm gonna give width and height of 120 and 120 here, and I'm gonna add 3 constraints, and you can see it's perfectly aligned. Now I want this to be right click and drag horizontal spacing is gonna add 8 pixels, and right click and drag from this one vertical spacing 8 pixels is gonna put it right here. And this one is gonna be 0, I want 0 from the left to margin, 8 from the top. Very good. Now this is gonna be our sign up controller. So basically selecting picture is gonna open photo library, and once the user selects the image, there is gonna be displayed right here, and then we can display the next button. So I don't want them to continue before they have selected the picture, so I'm gonna say next button is hidden. Very good. Now let's go and write some code for this. So basically I'm gonna delete this one. I don't need it. Okay, so basically we need 2 view controllers, one for sign up and one for login. I'm gonna go for sign up first. So let's go right click here and add new file. This new file is going to be a Cocoa attached class, and very simply it's going to be called sign up view controller. But first, if you make a subclass of a UI view controller, it's automatically filling this for you, and just say sign up view controller. Next, and create, and it created our sign up view controller. And very simply we just need to delete this as we don't need it. And by going back to main storyboard, we want to initialize this view controller to this view right here. So by pressing the yellow button right here and go to identity inspector, you can say sign up view controller. It auto-filled it for me by pressing SI, and by pressing enter we have this view associated with our sign up view controller. Which means now if we open our system editor and by pressing this one, we are automatically going to sign up view controller, as you can see. And here we can initialize our outlets. Now this is gonna be called a name field. I'm gonna call it name field. This is going to be an email field. This is gonna be a password field. The way I'm doing this, I'm either control click and drag or right click and drag, and by leaving it somewhere in the sign up view controller, you can initialize it as an outlet. And I'll call this password. So I'm gonna, I didn't want to call it password, but I'll call this a confirm PW field. Very good. Now we created our fields. Now we want to initialize as an outlet our image. So I'm gonna call this image view. And we want this as an outlet because we are hiding it, and we want it as an outlet so we can unhide it in our code. So we can say next button like this. We don't need an outlet for this one, we just need an action for this one. So I'm gonna put my actions under my view.load. I'm gonna keep my outlets on the top and my actions on the bottom. It's very good to have it organized. So by selecting connection as action, I'm gonna name it as select image pressed. Very good. And create an action. I'm gonna make a bit of space, and I'm gonna create an action for my next button, and I'm gonna call it next pressed. Some of you guys complain that you cannot see the text here, so give me a second and I'm gonna increase that for you. Alright, I increased this for you guys so you can clearly see what I'm typing. And I'm sorry for you guys that you watched my previous videos if you had any problem reading what I was typing. Now that we created our sign up view controller and we connected all the outlets, we can close the assistant editor and we can go and write some code in my sign up view controller. Now, first thing we want to do is we want to import Firebase. Like this, Firebase. Now we have access to all our Firebase methods. I'm sorry, we haven't finished yet our setup, as I can see. Now, after we put our pod install, we need to continue, and here, the last step, we need to add in our app delegate, import Firebase, and in did finish launching with options, we need to say fire app configure. I'm sorry, I didn't realize this. So by going right here in our app delegate, let's go in and import Firebase. And right here we say fire app, like this, fire app.configure. Now we finished with the installation of Firebase. Alright, now that we imported our Firebase in our sign up view controller, we have full access to its methods. Now, let's go and start writing some code. First things first, we need to select an image before we continue to next. So let's go and write our code to select image. Now, to select an image, we're gonna use an UI image picker controller. So to use this, we have to convert to some delegates. So right here where it says UI view controller, you can say comma and say UI image picker controller delegate and a UI navigation controller delegate, which is this one. Those two are needed for you to use your image picker. And you need to initialize your picker right on the top where you can say let picker equals UI image picker controller, like this. And in your viewDit load, you want to say picker.delegate equals self. Like this, your image picker that you created above is gonna listen to those delegates. And why did we need to use these delegates? Is because the image picker has a method that's getting called when the user finishes selecting an image. So when we press select image, we simply want to present this image picker. So we go and write picker dot. First of all, I want to allow editing into my pictures. So I'm gonna say picker dot allow editing equals to true. It depends on you guys if you want to allow editing or not into the pictures. If you don't want to, you can specify as false. I'll specify as true. And one more thing, you want to have the picker source type to be photo library. Now, the picker can be either camera or photo library, or you can see here save photo albums. I'm gonna go for photo library. I want to open my library full of photos and then select image from there. And very simply, we want to present this picker. So by pressing present, and you select this one with view controller, animated and completion, and the view controller we want to present is picker. And if you want animated, I will say to true, and we don't want any completion. Now this is presenting our picker, and from there we cannot do much. The user is selecting the picture, and what we can do, you can call the method from the delegate, which is called did finish picking media. So by pressing did finish picking media with info, you can select this is my first choice, and it's an image picker controller. That comes from the delegate, and this will get fired only when the user press done. And to secure our code from crashing, I'm gonna create a bit of space here for you guys. Now, to prevent this from crashing, you'll have to check that the image they selected does exist. So you have to say if let image, and this image is info, that info is a dictionary that we receive, and this info we want to say UI image picker controller edited image. Now, because I allows editing, I'm getting the edited image. If you don't allow editing, you can select UI image picker controller original image instead of edited. And you want to specify this as, if it's possible, UI image. And you want to open brackets. Now that we have the image, simply we want to put this image into the image view that we have in our view. So you can simply say self.imageView.image equals image. Is this image right here. And now that we know that this finished, we want our next button to be unhidden. So next button dot is hidden equals to false. So we can select it. And right here, I'm gonna delete this space. And after our if statement, we want to dismiss this view controller, this picker. So simply say self.dismiss. And animated will say true and completion nil. That is dismissing the image picker. Very good. Now that this is done, we want to go and write the code for next pressed. We have the image and we want to make sure the user has entered values on every field. So let's go and write our code for that. I'm gonna make a bit of space. How can we check that all our fields have something in it? Very simply with our guard condition. As you can see here, Swift has guard statement, and this guard statement checks if your condition exists, otherwise it's gonna do something else. It's something like an if statement, but you want to use guard if something exists or not. So very simply, I'm gonna say name field.text not equal to empty string, comma, email field.text not equal to empty string, comma, password.text not equal to empty string, and confirm password field.text not equal to empty string. And here we want to say else, and we open brackets and we close brackets, and we want to return. Now right here in the else, you can pop up an error message saying to the user, please fill up all the fields, or whatever message you want. I'm not going to do anything of that. I'm just going to return, so I'm not going to continue to the code underneath. Now that we've checked that all our fields exist, we want to check if our password field match with the confirm password field. So simply say if password.text double equals to confirm password field.text. And if it exists, you want to continue to signing up. Else, here you can display an error message saying to the user that the password field does not match. All I'm gonna do is just gonna print here password does not match. And let's go and write our code for signing up. To create a user in Firebase is very simple. You say fire auth create user, and you can see we have this method right here, create user with email, password, and completion. Now the email, we want email field.text, and we are sure that this exists. That's why we are putting exclamation mark, because we know we passed through that condition where it does not exist. So now we know it exists, so we put the exclamation mark. And password is our password dot text, and for this one we know that it does exist as well. And completion, if you double click this, it's gonna generate a bit of code for you, and it is gonna return a user and maybe an error. And in your code right underneath that, you want to check if there is an error. So if let error equal error, print the error dot localize description. Now this is gonna say what our error was, and right here we want to say if let user equals user. Now we know that we received the user back, and here let me explain to you what is gonna happen. Now that we received the user, I want to create into my Firebase database a field with all my users, and in that users I'm gonna insert their full name, their ID, a URL path to the image that they uploaded. But to do that, first we need to upload the image, and then after we upload the image, we want to go and get the download URL for that image. To upload the image, we need to have a reference to our storage. So if I go up and where I initialize my variables, I'll have to say var, and I'll call this user storage. And into your user storage, we're gonna store users' profile pictures, and let's call this a fire storage reference, just like this. We want the reference so we can go and upload something in there, and we can also download something from there. But first we need to get the URL for that. So in our viewDidLoad, if you say let storage, and that storage equals fire storage right here, and here you want to say storage, and you want to have a reference for URL. And where you get this URL from, if you go back to Firebase, so to your console, you can go to storage, and right here you can see you have a URL. Now you copy this URL and you have to paste it here as a string, and now we have a reference to that storage. If we say user storage that we created above, and we want this to be equal to storage.child, and this child is gonna be called users. Now what this does, now this storage goes and has a reference to our storage of this URL, and our user storage is this storage plus the folder users. So basically we go in by saying .child users, we are creating a new folder into our Firebase storage, which is gonna be called users, and in that folder we're gonna go and insert our picture. So let's go into our code here, and we have the user. Now we want to upload the picture there, so very simply we will have to have a reference to this image, and the way you call this is let image ref, that means image reference, and this is going to be self.user storage. If you remember, user storage now is our users folder in our storage, and you want to say child. Now where are we going to store this? We're going to go to our storage, we're going to go to our users folder, and the child, and this is going to be called, and this child is going to be the user ID. So the way you get your user ID, you go \/ open and close brackets, and here you say user.uid, and after the brackets you want to say .jpg. Now in our users folder we are creating a JPG file with the name of your user ID, and the way you do this is because this is unique, so every picture is going to belong to only one user. That's why we want to call this JPG file with our user ID. And the way you upload with Firebase, you upload data. You will have to go and get this user image and parse it as a data. And the way you do this, you say let data equal UI image JPEG representation, and this image is called self.imageView.image, and we know that this exists because our next button is not going to appear otherwise. And you want to give a compression quality. Now the user image is going to be a small circle, so I'm just going to call it 0.5. I want to compress it with 0.5 float value. That's going to make it a small picture and faster to load. Now you want to create your upload task, so let's go and say let upload task equals, and you want image ref, you want to get the image reference, and you want to put something in there, so simply saying by put, and you want to upload data with metadata and completion. You want the completion for this. The data we're going to upload is the data that we created up there, and we don't want any metadata, so you say nil. And if you double click this, it's going to autofill something for you, and this is giving you a Firebase storage metadata and an error, one of these of course. So I'm going to call this metadata, metadata, and this one an error. And what we want to write in the code, we want of course to check if there's no error. If error not equal to nil, Now I'm showing you two ways of you can check if there's an error. Either you specify it into another variable, or you can check if it's not nil. And you can say here print. Actually, I'm gonna call this an error because this one is error here. I want this an error. So here I'm gonna print error dot. Come on. What is the problem? I need to specify that this exists. Okay. And here error dot localized description. Now we know that there's no error, so we can continue. Explanation mark here. Now let's go and continue, and that means that we safely uploaded the picture, and after we uploaded the picture we want to get the URL to that picture. So you can say image ref dot download URL, and with a completion of course, and this is gonna give you a URL and an error. So you can say URL and error here. I will call it error, and of course you can check if error not equal to nil, print error dot localized description, and this exists. Now that we know that there's no error, we can continue to our code. Here we want to know that a URL actually arrived, so if let URL equals to URL, and here is where you're gonna create your user into the Firebase database. To do so, you need to say let user info. You're gonna create a dictionary with all the values that you want, and this user info is gonna be a string to any. And what you want a few things. Like, first thing that you need is a user ID, so I'm gonna call it UID, and this user ID is gonna be user dot UID. What else do we want? If you press a bit of tab to put it everything underneath, actually I want comma for this, and brackets are not gonna close yet. Okay, we want the full name and the way you get the full name, we have a field saying name field, so we have to say self dot name field dot text, and we know that this exists, comma, and we also want a URL to image. Now this URL to image is gonna take us to the link where we can get the profile picture of that user. So this is a URL dot, and we want to save it as an absolute string because Firebase does not accept NSURL. Very good. And last thing you want to do is finally assign this user to Firebase. And the way you do this, you need a reference to your database. Remember how we had a reference here for our storage? The same thing we want for our database. So I'm gonna call this ref, and this ref is gonna be Fire database reference, and this is gonna exist. And our ref here, ref equals Firebase database.database.reference. Now we have finally reference to our database, and by going right here we can do some things. And the things we want to do is we want to go to our folder of users, and then we want to go and put this into a specific ID, which ID is going to be the user ID, and we're going to put all those three values in there. Now something cool with Firebase is that if you say self.ref.child and the child is called users, it's going to go to your reference of your database and it's going to check for this folder users. If it does not exist, it's going to automatically create it. And the same thing, after you go to your users folder, you want to go child, and this child, you want to create another folder, let's call it like this, another branch, I'll say, and that branch is going to be the user ID. You want something unique. So user.uid, and under that user ID, you want to add all the data for your user. So by pressing .setValue, and the value is your user info. Now this is gonna go to users, and this is gonna go to your specific user ID that's unique for every user, and it's gonna add all the necessary things in there. After this is done, we want to proceed to another view, which is gonna be our user view. We still have not created this user view into our storyboard, but we are gonna create it very soon. And let's go write the code for this now. And let's go. Let VC stands for view controller equals UI storyboard, and this storyboard has a name of main because it's gonna be located into our main storyboard with no bundle, and we want to instantiate this view controller with identifier, and the identifier I'm gonna call it user VC like this, and we're gonna say self.present. And the view controller you want to present is VC animated true and completion nil. Now, if you run the code before you create this user VC, this is gonna crash. So let's go to main storyboard and let's go and create this user UI view controller right here. And by pressing the yellow button here in storyboard ID, you can say users VC like we specified into our sign up view controller. Now this is gonna go to this view right here, so I'm gonna give it a specific color so you can see that it is actually going there. I'm gonna give it a color of red. Now one thing before continuing, I want to set up to my Firebase current user the display name to be the name of that field that they entered. And right here, when I say if let user equals user, I want to make a change request into my Firebase authorization. And let's go and create this change request, and this equals fire auth.current user that I know everything exists, and the current user I want to make a profile change request, and here we press change request dot display name. I want this display name to be equal to the name field, so I'm gonna simply say equals self.namefield.text. And after that you want to commit the changes, so change request dot commit changes with completion, and we don't want any completion. The way I want this is because after we post the feed, I want to display who posted it, and I'm gonna use Firebase auth current user display name for that, as I don't want to go through the database and search for all the users. This is gonna save me a lot of time. That's why I'm doing this here. Now we want to go into upload task, we want to start running it, and right here after our second brackets here, right here we can say upload task.resume. That's gonna fire our upload task. Now let's go and see how this is happening. One thing I forgot to do is I want to make the sign up button to pop me up into my sign up view controller, and the way I do this, I go to main storyboard and close this for a second, and by right click and drag this to this view, or control and drag to this view, and you want action segue to be show. Now by pressing this button, this is gonna show. So let's go and run again, and at the same time I'm gonna open my Firebase console. Now I'm gonna go to database, and you can see live how your database is changing. So let's go and sign up. Hopefully everything will go smooth. Full name, I'm gonna put my name, Blanco-Nunev, and email, I'm gonna put a vn@vn.com, and password ASD, and confirm password ASD. Now I know this is not gonna work for a second, because in your Firebase authentication you want to enable sign-in method. Go to sign-in method, and you want to enable email and password. So by simply pressing edit, you enable this like that, save. Now this is gonna work. So let's go back to our database and select picture, and I get a crash. And the reason I get a crash is because I need into my plist to insert NS photo library uses description. So I'm just gonna copy this, and let's go, and I'm gonna press Command Shift O, and here I want to open info.plist. Very nice. Or you can find your info plist right here, this one, and anywhere just press a single plus button. I'm gonna press Ctrl V, and this is gonna paste the NS photo library uses description. And by pressing somewhere else, this is gonna now pop a message to the user that I want to use your photo library. Are you allowing me or not? This is for security reasons, of course. So let's go again. Sign up. Full name, I'm gonna press Blanco-Nunev. vn@vn.com. Password ASD, confirm password ASD. Select picture. As you can see, Instagram would like to access to your photos. You can say OK. And here we're gonna select the photo profile image. I'm gonna select this, choose, and it goes right here. I'm gonna press next, but first let's open Safari. Let's go next. Now this will take a bit of time to do. I'm gonna go and create activity indicator showing that, but let's go and see why this crashed. Oh, I pressed into my storyboard user VC instead of users VC. Let's go and explain to you guys why this crashed. Basically, into my red view controller here, right, this one, I said users VC, and into my sign up I said user VC, and that's why it crashed. By saying users VC, this is now opening. But if you check into Safari, you can see that here it created users, and if I go to users, I have my user ID, and if I go to under my user ID, I can see my user was created, Blanco-Nunev. This is my user ID, and here is the URL to my image. So you can see that this actually worked, and if I go again and sign up another person, this is actually gonna work. But let's go and write our code to log in the user. Now, into our main storyboard, we have this view. This view needs a view controller, and I'm gonna go right click into Instagram and new file. And this new file is gonna be a Cocoa Touch class again, and it's gonna be called login view controller. I'm gonna go create. Let's go back to our storyboard, and we want this to press on the button, and we want to call this login view controller. Very simple. Now this is associated with our login view controller, and by pressing our system editor, we can now see that automatically goes to our login view controller. I'm gonna delete the unnecessary code right here, and I want to make my outlets. So right click and drag my email field, and I'll call it email field. I'm gonna connect this, right click and drag my password field. I'm gonna call it PW field for password field, and I want an action for my login button. So login button is gonna have an action called login pressed. I'm gonna connect this. Now I'm done with my connection, so I can close my assistant editor, and if I go to login view controller, I can go and write code for my login pressed. Let me close this for you. Now I want to make sure that the email field and the password field are not empty. So as I said before, guard is our statement that we want to use. So guard email field dot text not equal to empty string, and we want comma pw field dot text not equal to empty string, and this is gonna give else return. Now as I said before, you can have your code right here into else and to do something that you want, like an error message or something. I'm not gonna do that. And let's go and import Firebase so we can sign our user. Now in here we want to say auth.auth.sign in, and you want with email and password. And the email, of course, is our email field.text that we know that exists. Password field is pw field.text that we know that exists. And a completion, if you press enter or double click, is going to autofill few code for you. And this is going to give you either a user or an error. And you want to check if there's an error, and you can say if let error equal error, print this error like this, dot localize description, so you can understand what is going on. And if let user equals to user, we know that we received the user, and in here you want to continue to your user's view controller. And this is let VC, the same thing as the last code that we wrote into our sign up, is UI storyboard with a name. This name is main with bundle nil dot instantiate view controller with identifier. And let's make sure that our identifier is user or users. I can see it's users, so I'm just gonna copy this to prevent from crashing like this. And in here I want to self.present, and the view controller I'm gonna present is VC true and completion nil. Let's go run this and see if we can log in with the account that we created. Now you can check into your authentication, you can check all your users. As you can see, I created an email vn@vn.com, and this is my user ID and everything. So into an email, I'm gonna say vn@vn.com, password is ASD, login. It puts me into my user's account. Now guys, this video got a bit too long, so I'm gonna stop right here. And in the next videos, I'm gonna show you how to see all your users right here, how you can follow users, how you can like their pictures, how you can upload pictures, and more stuff like that.
And this is the end of our video, guys. I'm trying to make shorter videos for you, but applications like this, they take a bit of time, and I'm sorry if you didn't learn anything new, but I really hope you learned something that you didn't know before. In the next videos, I'm gonna show you how you can follow and unfollow those users that we're gonna create, and how you can post pictures and like and unlike them, and all fun features like this. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this, and here you can check my other tutorials. See you in the next episode.